All right, good afternoon, everybody. This is the March 13th Town Council Budget Workshop. I'd like to call this meeting to order. Can I have a motion to adopt the agenda? Okay, well, all those in favor, please signify by raising your right hand. So this is this workshop discussion on capital improvement projects, CIP, for the 2026 fiscal year. I thought we would just kind of give a brief overview, and I'll let Sean Colin do most of the talking on this, but yesterday the State Infrastructure Bank had a meeting. County reps were there, staff reps were there, and Chairman John White, they had a vote on the joint resolution between the town and the county, which was denied. So there's a 60 to 90 day window to address the denial. So there are conversations that are taking place, trying to get with all the different parties. It's still very, very new and very fluid as to what is going to transpire, when meetings are going to happen. So Sean, if you could add anything to that, it would be beneficial.
Thank you, Mayor, Council, Town Manager, guests. I'll add just a few more details. You did a good job in covering it. So the State Transportation Infrastructure Bank met yesterday at 11 a.m. They had an executive session discussion about 3 projects. Let's just talk about ours. As you recall, Town Council and Beaufort County Council adopted a joint resolution that agreed to a revised scope of the project and to the funding allocation plan based on the funds that were on hand for the project, and submitted that to both the Infrastructure Bank and to SCDOT as a response to letters that they had sent both the county and the town. The State Infrastructure Bank took action to disapprove the proposal or the joint resolution proposal to revise the scope and the funding allocation plan. Their comments were that it was in violation of the intergovernmental agreement that they had with Beaufort County. Chairman White did say 60 to 90 days for the county to be able to take the new information and be able to react to that. I want to talk a little bit about that one point. It was intended that if the SIB supported the joint resolution that was put forth by the town and the county, that the county would then work with the State Infrastructure Bank to amend the IGA and their agreement with SCDOT. So it may be a teeny bit out of sequence. Last night at the Beaufort County Council meeting, Senator Tom Davis spoke about the action that the Infrastructure Bank board had taken, and stressed the sense of urgency to the county to draft a revised IGA to submit to the State Infrastructure Bank for consideration. So the SIB did not want to set precedent to approve a revised scope and funding plan that was in violation of the intergovernmental agreement and the project that was defined in that agreement where they had pledged $120 million. So the county has, looks like some time, but maybe less than 60 to 90 days, significantly less than that, to provide some additional material to the State Infrastructure Bank. I do know that SCDOT, on the other hand, does the 60 to 90 days, there was already a shot clock because of the deficient bridge. And while I haven't talked to Secretary Powell, that's something that we need to factor into this. How does the additional time frame factor into his decision to move forward with improvements? So at this point, the SIB just reacted to the joint resolution and said they didn't agree with it. It was in violation with IGA. Looks like the county, depending on their direction, could submit a revised IGA for the SIB to continue. I have no crystal ball on whether or not the SIB would approve the revised IGA or maintain the existing funding. That's something to be determined at a later date.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Orlando, do you have anything to add?
No details, with the exception of I've spoke with Senator Davis a couple of times about this, and I have a call into Mr. Moore, County Administrator, and I see that I just missed his call as I was walking in here naturally, and of course. So as soon as I'm able to connect with him, I think that I'll be able to share more detail with all of you, knowing, and we need to know where they are in this whole equation.
Okay. I'd also suggest that if you haven't gone to the Beaufort County Channel website, watch the county meeting from last night. I think it's 13 minutes and 34 seconds up to 27 minutes or somewhere around there, maybe 37 minutes. But County Administrator Moore does a good job of explaining. Senator Davis does a good job of explaining his position and on it and everything else. So if you haven't watched that, I would highly recommend that you do take the time to watch that. So that being said, Mr. Leiniger, I'll turn it over to you, I believe, for the review and discussion.
Or will. I'll jump in.
PowerPoint.
So, good afternoon or good evening. It's to the mayor and council and to the community. Today is a follow-up from yesterday's public workshop where we spoke about the various funds, a follow-up to general fund, debt service, stormwater, our Gullah Geechee Historic Neighborhood Community Development Corporation, and our housing fund. Today we're to go over the entire capital improvement program. So you will see the 1 year funding, and we can also start talking about the 5-year prioritization, right? The 4 years after this current fiscal year prioritization. I will lean on Sean Leiniger, who as our assistant town manager has oversight of the Department of Engineering, and engineering within that department has the capital improvement program. We have great project managers, great leadership at the CIP program level, and also at the table today is Jeff Netzinger, our engineer director, who has oversight of that entire program, including stormwater. So Jeff, welcome, glad you're here. We will talk about our capital improvement program fund, and the way we're looking at it this fiscal year is that $47.5 million is allocated and budgeted for beach renourishment, and $30,187,000 is allocated and budgeted for other capital improvement program projects this fiscal year. Yesterday, and just for the sake of the 5 o'clock meeting today, yesterday we went over a general fund that is a 4.5% reduction year over year from last year, a debt service fund that is a 13% increase over last year. Particularly, it's simply scheduled principal and interest payments, but also paying off callable debt for the beach renourishment bonds that are currently outstanding before we put a strategy in place to fund the current beach renourishment project. We talked about a stormwater utility fund that is $11.1 million. The majority of that work, as we talked about, was capital projects, including work we're doing as a staff through our own performance or through outsourced contractor. And 2 million of that 11.1 million is earmarked, and I would say allocated, placed for reimbursement to those private system agreement partners that we have. So I think that we're going in a great direction with that. We talked about the Gullah Geechee Historic Neighborhood Community Development Corporation Fund of $3.2 million. Year over year is more or less flat from prior year, and that has been proposed by the board of directors and the executive director for inclusion in this budget. And then last but not least, we talked about the housing fund of $3.9 million, where those dollars are allocated for North Point, public-private partnership, Muddy Creek, capital project investment, at $1.5 million, and another $1 million earmarked for a potential public-private partnership for the Bryant Road site that the town acquired some months ago. So today we're to talk about the capital improvement program. And I'll read this because it's interesting. Like, I have had a lot of questions, just what makes a capital project different than a maintenance project? And that second paragraph really covers it. But this capital improvement program fund is used to account for and report all financial resources that are committed to the acquisition, construction, or renovation of a major capital facility, including ongoing, and you'll see this today, ongoing major improvement projects and major equipment or other capital asset acquisition. So a capital expenditure pays for land, buildings, machinery, equipment, or infrastructure with an original cost of $5,000 or more, and software licenses and others that are a consumable nature of 50 or more, but all of them have an estimated useful life of more than 2 years. So they're not janitorial projects over $5,000 or $50,000. That falls in operating. And so today, what we will show you, and the primary source of revenue up there are those revenues that we talk about, mostly transfers in. They're bond proceeds from borrowed dollars, hospitality, beach preservation, SCA tax, and whatnot. What you will see today, remind me of the words we've used discretionary projects and maintenance projects. And so I appreciate really, Ms. Tunner, I know said it, and I know several of you have also asked for that. But us distinguishing between a discretionary project, AKA a new project like a park, or a maintenance project like the boardwalk at Coligny with the screws or nails falling out of it. Two different types of projects, but both fit in the capital improvement program. So I think that is a really good step this year. What you're going to see different than last year as well is a 5-year prioritization look, not just a 1-year prioritization look. We have, as we have every year, we've reviewed the program to see prior year projects, realizing or estimating whether we're going to finish in this current fiscal year, or do we need to move the project and the dollars already assigned to it forward. We considered internal and external sources for projects. We looked at available funding. Sean and team went to the Planning Commission where they prioritized. We have in the past prioritized this 1, 2, and 3 and worked through that prioritization. And we're building projects as we're able to, can afford to do, and that we have staff capacity to do. So you will see the Planning Commission prioritization list today of simply, they say it's a priority. They're not getting in the year 1, year 2, year 5 prioritization work. That is a South Carolina code requirement that the Planning Commission prioritize capital projects. And last, of course, not least, is our time with you. First reading today, and that second and final reading, of which first and second reading are public hearings. So we have a proposed and a balanced budget, a proposed use of funds of $77.6 million. You will see the beach program at 48.8, the pathway program at 1.6, roadway program at 5 million, park program 10.6 million, facilities and equipment 4.7, stormwater 6.3 million, fleet and land acquisition 180,000 and 250,000 respectively. You will see that the CIP, the capital program as we know it, has decreased. Even with the $48 million in there, it has decreased $5 million year over year, right? So close to 6% of a decrease from prior year. I always don't look at capital programs and say less is more. I think what we are doing this year better than past years is anticipating how long it takes to survey, civil design, land disturbance permit, coastal zone discovery, Fori, correct me, land disturbance permit, and then bid and find the contractor at the right price, negotiate that price within budget, right, because our budget's on the screen, and execute a contract. That is taking us a lot longer than, frankly, I first anticipated. I think the dynamic of construction, especially of public projects, has changed. I'm confident in our team that they are refining, learning and refining that process that we just talked about. And so by doing so, I believe we've brought you a fund that is more realistic to accomplish. And so we're going to share those details with you today. You see that majority of the use of our funds in our capital improvement program, 61% of our capital program this year is beach renourishment. Our most important project is beach renourishment. There are various sources of funds. So of the $77.6 million, you can see the funding sources. We don't need to dive into them today, but we know that those transfers in, as we've explained them, beach fees, H-tax, business license, SCA tax, permit fees, and various other sources of dollars make up that $77.6 million cash investment at this point. And so we've taken that a little further and broke it down and shared with you the various amounts that make up the traffic and impact fees, the Sunday liquor permit fees. And I think for this sake, I simply want to share with you on this screen that those funding sources make up those values as we're planning the budget. I always talk with staff and then the team, and we know that figuring out how to fund capital projects is an art and a science. It's understanding where those dollars can be used. And I've said this before, a lot of times folks ask, well, why can't we build more pathways? And we have some A-tax sitting aside or H-tax sitting aside. All those dollars don't always qualify for every type of project. And the sources of money track the uses of money. And so you can see the majority, 61% of our projects was beach, and you see 53% as a source. Some highlights. We will have a capital improvement program web-based life cycle dashboard. I think Sean's going to share that with you in a slide or two. I'm excited about it because I can get on there at any moment, know what's going on with the project, and if I have a question beyond what's updated, I know who to ask. It should identify the project manager and the status and spend of the project. This program supports several existing projects underway as well as new projects. Schedules, project timelines to balance stages and create coordination between projects. What you'll see this year, simply, I think that what that's trying to say is we're trying to be very clear with y'all. When we put X number of dollars in the budget, are we in the design year and or the permitting year and or the construction year of the life cycle of a project? We are trying to do a better job, because once we approve something and we say, oh, Mid-Island's on here, and everyone's expecting us to be under construction 2 months later for Mid-Island Park, when a lot of what I just said takes about 2 years to get to, right? So I think that this budget and alignment with that dashboard help with that. We have a diverse source of funds, and we continue to learn. I would say that I think Richard Loudon, who runs our CIP program, said it best one day. He said, what I don't have here that I really need is some historical perspective on time and on cost. And we're starting to build projects. We've never built projects at this magnitude and at this scale in a really long time. So we continue to expand our efforts to explore different revenue sources, including scrubbing our pricing in various ways. Our projects are diverse through the island. You can see this map. We simply use this map to tell the story that the projects are in more than one area, and they cover stormwater, parks, roads, pathways, beaches. What's that? Are you ready? Is this you? There we go. And John Leiniger, Assistant Town Manager.
Thank you, Mark. Good afternoon, good evening, Mayor Perry, members of Town Council. Before I jump into the different programs that consist of the capital improvement program, I want to take a moment. Mark mentioned a dashboard that town staff is working on. I want to take a moment and share that with you. Over time, we've used a number of different resources to try to convey information about our CIP program, both to you, to the public, even to town staff. The system that we use in place is right now is geographic based. It's our GIS system. It's helpful. It provides a lot of good information, but what we found is that we looked around the country and we got feedback from people who are utilizing this information, including you all, is that we're not conveying the right information. So what we've done is we are taking a pretty deep dive into the current system. Let's see if I can do this without. Into our current system and refining it so it looks something like this. There are best practices around the country. They utilize the same exact system, so we have all we have the resource here. We just need to use it better. And what this conveys to everybody in the public is, first of all, right front and center is a map showing all of the projects. So those little colors that you see highlighted, those are all the projects starting to turn on a map, so you can see where they are on the island. On the left-hand side, you can search for projects based on those project categories I'm about to go through, the phase, the fiscal year, what funding source you're looking for. You can also search for projects. You can zoom in on the map and click on projects. And what happens is once you get down to a project, there is information here. So I already have the beach nourishment program on, so I'll use this as our example, but the information that it provides is the title, the description, whether or not it's on budget, whether or not it's on schedule. Gives you some detail about the project itself as far as what fiscal year are we in, what's the funding source, those things that we're talking about here today, what the budget is. And then starts to provide some information related to the project. And this is new, and this is accurate information that we received today, so this is preliminary. But we estimate that our project, the Beach Nourishment Project, is going to start to mobilize on July 7th. It'll actually start construction about a month later in August. But then that project, we estimate, pending weather and a number of other factors, that will be done by May 30th of 2026. So it provides just a quick snapshot of the project, tells us those design phases that Mark alluded to in previous slides about where we are in the construction phase. A little bit more detail when detail is necessary as far as about that phase and the status. Updates on the project. So this is also current information. Last time we spoke about this project, we were in workshop and we were in the middle of soliciting bids. We received the bids. 4 contractors had bid, and we selected Marinex to begin on the schedule that I just shared above. Most importantly, also provides some contact information. So if you have questions about the project, you can reach out to Jeff as the project manager, and then providing project information, project details. So if you want to get in and see the plans, you want to see photos, you want to see information, it's all right here at your fingertips, and you don't have to go too far to find this. And so this is the resource we're building. We're pretty excited about it, looking forward to populating the rest of this here over the next
When
month.
is it going to be live?
So we want it to be live when the budget goes live.
Okay.
Preferably when the press releases start to go out, that we've adopted the budget. I'd like to have the link in that press release saying, if you have questions or want more information, go here.
This is exciting to have this. Something I think we've all been looking for a long time. When I say us, I mean the community. And having an outline the way you've got it, it doesn't leave much to the question.
And the benefit of this will be that this will highlight all of those projects, right? So I wouldn't imagine that every software purchase that's in the CIP program to use as a funding tool or a fund tool won't be in here. But every project that we're working on, whether it's maintenance or discretionary in that regard, should and will show up on this screen. So very proud of the team for putting this together, and the leadership from Sean and Jeff to push this forward. And our amazing geographic information system team, Jacob Duell and company.
So, Mayor, I'm glad to see this system as well. My question is, you briefly talked about beach renourishment. We're talking about dashboard now. I guess we're going to come back to beach renourishment. Thank you.
Yes. All right, so I'll get back into the presentation so we can talk about projects like beach renourishment. So as Mark shared, the CIP is split into these 8 different program areas, from beaches down through land acquisition. I'm gonna go through each one by one. As I go through each one, just so you kind of understand the rhythm that I'll be in for these next 8 topics, we'll talk just generally about what the program is for, what the fund is for. We'll dive into the budget sheets that are in your budget books, so we can see what is the money that's allocated for FY26. Then what are the priorities in those out years? Our focus is, of course, on the budget for 26, but so you understand the big picture, what those priorities are. And then I'll highlight a couple of projects from each area. One thing as I'm highlighting, I note that it's a highlight of the project. Mark shared yesterday, we do have a number of workshops scheduled with town council. One of those workshops will be on CIP. So we'll take a deeper dive into projects in that, I believe it's a July workshop. So I'm gonna be pretty high level as part of this presentation. So the first fund is the beach program. It's 48.8 million of the 77.7 million, it's 77.8 million of the CIP program, or over just 51%. In addition, and much of that as you know, is comprised of the beach renourishment project. So of the 48.8, we're estimating 47.5 million for beach renourishment. The balance of that fund is utilized to manage and maintain, repair our 7 beach parks. So anything that that's of a capital item that needs to be repaired, replaced in that, in a beach park, it comes out of this fund. The restrooms, the signage, the parking lots, the Bomey mats, the trash, there's a whole host of things that come out of that. We also utilize this fund for ongoing beach activities. As part of the beach renourishment workshops, we shared that we do have teams that go out and manage or monitor our beach every year, especially after storms. So we understand what's happening on our beach. Are we losing sand? Are we gaining sand? Are we losing beach? Are we gaining beach? And really give us that data. So when the next beach renourishment project comes up, we have data to go and show, here's what we need to do to renourish our beach. And oh, by the way, to the state and federal government, when we asking for permits and money, we can document our work and show, hey, we are eligible for work and here's why. So that's a big part of what this program is for. So these are the budget sheets that are in your budget book. I want to hit pause, and because you're going to see these repeated throughout, I just want to share it once, and then we don't have to do this every time, but share with you what's on this sheet. And Mark touched upon a number of these items already. On the left-hand side, of course, is the project name. The project type is the maintenance versus discretionary. And I think Mark did a great job of summarizing what that means. If we have more questions, I have some technical definitions we can get into. Then we have our proposed FY26 budget. So those projects that are active and live for this year or this coming year, they're listed here. If they're a future year, there's of course no funding associated with them, but we will see a priority mark in these out years for those projects that we're just not quite ready to start or projects that will be continuing. So as part of that, you'll see programs that just continue from year to year or that are priorities in all 5 years. But then you also have some long-term projects like the Cligney Beach Boardwalk maintenance. That's just we're gonna nibble at that over the next several years to repair that boardwalk. The next column is the FY26 Planning Commission priority. I can tell you that as part of anything that has money associated with it, other than a contingency line item, does have a Planning Commission priority next to it. And then to give you some insight as far as, okay, what are we doing with 150,000 or 220,000? What are we doing? Are we doing design, permitting, or construction in FY26? It tells us that, or some combination thereof. Previously, we would put, there's not a good example in here, but Crossings Park, for example, we would put the whole budget in the CIP. But really, we were only going to get to Mark's point about the life cycle of a project. We were only going to get to design. So why do we need to carry $8 million in our CIP if we only need $750,000 for design? So this starts to give you that intel, that insight into where we are and where we're going. With that being the case, you'll see this repeated. But next year, we of course have the couple of projects I've already mentioned with the beach park maintenance, the ongoing maintenance, the beach management monitoring, the beach renourishment, which I have a slide that we'll talk a little bit about the beach renourishment project. And then a couple of other projects with the Cligney Beach Boardwalk. Mark mentioned this already, that it's starting to show its age and we need to start not just doing repairs anymore, we need to start replacing sections of the boardwalk. So that's what we're gonna start doing next year and for the next several years. And then the Harbor Town Dredge is a project we've been carrying for a number of years now. It is in litigation, so we continue, but we did make a commitment to utilize those funds, so they still sit in our budget each year. Every item, every program fund does have a contingency for those unforeseen things that may pop up throughout the year. Generally, it's around 100,000, but in some, I think there might be a couple of instances where we went a little bit higher because of just the overall program for that fund. As far as the highlight of a project, we've talked several times, so I won't spend too much time on the beach renourishment other than to highlight a couple things that are new. One, I already shared the dates as far as when we're going to start and when we think we're going to end. We have also, our permit is pending for Pine Island, so we've actually received the state permit, and when the federal permit is pending right now. So we're very close to receiving the Pine Island permits. And then we've also selected a contractor. The pricing has, we have a total budget amount of $47.5 million. The low bid that we received was for just under $39 million. That does not include the breakwaters for Pine Island, so that'll get added in. We estimating that cost will be around another $5 million. So right now, everything as far as just from a bid without any contingency in it, we are coming in on budget for everything that we've shown so far. So that's all I had for the beach program. Mayor, if I could stop here and take any questions or however you'd like to.
Any questions or concerns?
Just a couple of questions. First of all, I want to publicly thank Mr. Leininger for coming to one of my community meetings where we focused on the 3 Bs, beach, bridge, and budget. Does that sound familiar? And having him there to address a lot of the technical questions, especially about beach renourishment, made me look smart. So thank you very much for being there. Just wanted to, you've given us a little bit of information. When do we anticipate having a contract? And I think you briefly went by the start date, but I want to make sure the public knows when we're thinking it's going to start and when we'll have a contract and when we're going to think it's going to start. So just to make sure we have that information out there.
So we are currently reviewing contract, reviewing final information regarding the bid we received. The contract will line up. We need to have the budget, the second reading of the budget, and then we'll be able to enter into that contract. So our goal is to hit that June 4th, if budget approval is June 3rd, and then we'll be underway. As far as those dates, and I apologize, I didn't mean to go quickly past those. They are estimates at this point. However, we are, based on the schedule we've received today, we are expecting the mobilization to begin on July 7th. It'll take about a month to bring pipe and equipment to the beach. They will, to remind everybody, they'll most likely be coming from Islanders Beach Park. And then the first week in August 6th, is when we expect actual construction to begin, start pumping sand to Pine Island, or the Pine Island, and work our way around the island. This is the current sequence that they've identified right now. Pine Island around to South Beach.
And I think I had some questions about the impact on Islanders Beach Park and using some of the parking spaces there. So I understand as soon as we know those details from our contractor, we'll be putting that out to the public because we have a lot of our residents love to go to Islanders Beach Park because of its dedication for residential use. But can you share a little bit of information about how that communication will happen?
So communication will happen through a few different methods, primarily electronic, through our social media, through our newsletters. We'll also work with the media themselves. We have a project page that's dedicated just to this topic where people can gather information. We've also been doing some direct mailings to those along the beach and working with the POAs to make sure that the associations are aware of when we'll be in their neighborhoods and along their beachfront. So it's a multi-pronged approach, working with the great team over in communications.
That include information of businesses along the areas as well.
Absolutely,
So,
yes.
okay, great. Thanks. Just want to make sure that we get that information out to the public, taking advantage of this time talking about the project. Thank you.
The other item is, again, regarding Islanders Beach. There were additional improvements that were planned, and now they've been pushed back to the following year. And I was speaking with some constituents today that were asking some questions. And it is smart and wise to move it because, as you said, Islanders Beach parking is going to be a launch point for all the equipment. So it does not make sense to invest in continued improvements in that park until after all that activity is complete.
And following up on that, although it doesn't show money during FY 2026, because of this project, it'll be pushed forward, as I understand it. So it doesn't mean that the project is disappearing. It just means it's being postponed due to beach renourishment.
Exactly. So the priority, when you see Islanders Beach Park, I think Mark had previously shared that our goal was to get that project done this year. It was part of the FY25 budget. As we went out to bid late last summer, early fall, we didn't receive any bids, so we had to extend that. Then we received bids that were $1 million over budget. Schedules then weren't working out. We were starting to now bump into the beach renourishment project. So it was delayed, but it will begin July 1 of 27. Actually, it'll be Labor Day after we get through the beach season. So after the beach season in FY27, so September of 26 is when we will start that work.
Do you anticipate receiving any information about where the construction crew will move after the Port Royal side, and approximately when to Central and South, in what order?
Yes, we will have that information. It'll be in their schedule as far as how they move. Generally, once they get going, their sequence will take them right around the island. We have some dates. I don't have them with me, but that's something we can definitely follow up with, because we're starting to see some of those details come to light when they'll arrive at Port Royal and when they'll leave Port Royal, move down to the Central.
Thank you. I would appreciate that.
Are there additional funds secured for storm activity, or has that been baked in the cake by the contractor?
So storm activity, and Jeff, maybe you can help with this, but storm activity would generally be held separate.
I'm talking storm activity which ceases the project and they have to decouple and remobilize. Is that a contractor's responsibility?
The demobilization details are in the contract, but if there's a substantial demobilization, a modification might need to be applied. It would depend on the nature of it, but they have it required in the contract to be an account for having to demobilize.
Does not. Is that what you said?
It is.
Oh, it does.
So the next program fund is the Pathway Program, $1.6 million. This, of course, goes towards the maintenance of and improvement, expansion of our 65 miles of pathways that are around the island. This is maintenance, whether it's repair, rejuvenation, safety enhancements, generally also construction of new projects, which we have a couple identified that we're working on design this year. And also then incorporating ADA compliance as we are working through our network and making improvements. We work with a lot of different partners on this to identify projects, but this is the Pathway Program. So again, the same methodology is shown here with the Pathway Program, starting with the maintenance and improvements. So $500,000 to help us go through and repair and resurface existing pathways around the island. Our facilities department goes out and does a pavement condition rating of our pathways, just like the engineering department does of our roadways, and so we work from that. We have several large projects that are in design at this right now. One is the Jonesville Road Pathway, and I have a specific slide on this, so I'll save some commentary for that, but this is for design and permitting of that pathway of $500,000. Dunnigan's Alley is another one. This is also design and permitting money, and I have a slide that speaks to that project. And then a project that we've recently applied through DOT for some funding for was the William Hilton Parkway eastbound pathway that runs right outside our front door here from Wexford over to Arrow Road. We applied for an 80-20 grant, so 80% funds from the state, 20% on our side for that project, and we have been awarded those funds. So this represents what we believe is going to be our initial match for design and probably a little bit of construction based on how some of the numbers are starting to shake out. But this will get that project moving forward over the next couple years with DOT. We have a number of other projects that are in the priorities for the out years. A hawk signal down at South Forest Beach, on Lagoon Road from Avocet going around kind of Lagoon Road as it ties back into North Forest Beach. Starting to think about a pathway to make that connection. A connection on Palmetto Parkway Pathway, which is building off of the work that we're doing now on William Hilton 3 between Beach City and Dillon Road. Beach City to Dillon Road. Spanish Wells Bridge, pedestrian bridge, is in need of some maintenance. So because it's a pretty significant project, we have that called out separately, not part of the pathway maintenance project. Thinking about pathways on Fish Hall Road, beginning of year 28. And then a few other projects as far as building out that network on the eastbound William Hilton Parkway. Thinking about the Cross Island Parkway and how do we connect how do we connect Coastal Discovery to the Spanish Wells neighborhood? And then as we talk about Muddy Creek, especially yesterday as part of the housing fund, thinking about the Muddy Creek neighborhood as we start to make some neighborhood stabilization investment in there, as we invest in the Bryant Road tract, how do we better connect that neighborhood to our pathway network? And there's a unique opportunity. There's a trail along Cross Island, across some state property, that we think be a good solution for that. And that's identified for the out year. And then you see we have, of course, the contingency. As far as a couple of projects, the Jonesville Road pathway, this is construction of about a 1.3 mile pathway that starts at Spanish Wells Road, goes to the terminus of Jonesville Road, really primarily along the north side of the road, crosses over at the Bailey's Cove neighborhood to the south side, which requires a little bit of a boardwalk for some wetland crossing. But not just thinking about the pathway, thinking about the neighborhood. How do we incorporate not just signage for the pathway, but signage for the neighborhood? How do we put some historic markers out there? That's something we heard from the community as part of our community meeting. Right now, design is underway. We're expecting to get to permit and land acquisition in FY26, and then construction in 27. You can see the estimated number since we have one for that one, for 3.9 million for that pathway.
Hang on, Mr. Brown.
Live already, right?
It's live.
Okay. Obviously, I appreciate the high level of priority here when it comes to the Jonesville Road pathway. And I know we've held a community meeting down there where staff has a lot of good input from the stakeholders there. You mentioned historical markers, and I know, Mr. Orlando, in the past, we have engaged with professionals to help us sort of unfold the true history of particular areas. We have a case study in Patterson Park, the same with Taylor's Park. Just curious to know if the funding will include an opportunity for us to engage with such consultants to make sure that we are depicting a true story as far as the Jonesville historical significance.
Yes, I'll say loud and clear, absolutely. This will be something, I think just a 360-degree assessment of it to understand, and I would imagine more than a historical marker, more some wayfinding and historical marker along that pathway.
Thank you.
Wayfinding included.
The next project is also out right outside our door here with Dunnigan's Alley Pathway. This is construction. We call it a pathway, even though it's what we're talking about is taking the existing. Right now, there's two very narrow sidewalks that run along their back of curb on the, I guess that's the north side of the road, on the business side of the road. Removing that sidewalk, getting some separation off of it, and then replacing it with an 8 to 10 foot. We're calling it a pathway, but it's a concrete sidewalk. To kind of represent the business area that we're in. But also as part of that include pedestrian safety improvements. There's a number of driveway crossings through that area, but then also how do we enhance the landscaping? How do we make this more of a front door instead of just a back door? And you start to see that happening already with local legends and the work that they've put in their property. But how can we set this corridor up for success in the future as other properties come in to redevelop? So right now design is underway. We're planning to get the permitting in 26 and then construction in FY27. That's the end of that segment. If I'll stop there for a second. If there's anything, or I'll keep going.
Keep going.
All right.
Oh, sorry. You're going to go on from pathway to roadway, sorry.
Yes.
So just looking at the total number for the year for pathway program, shows in the revised 2025, 5.5 million, and then in the proposed FY 2026, 1.650 million. So a reduction of 70%. But I think it's important to note, those of us who are still pathway advocates, that we're not reducing our emphasis on improving our pathways, that we're getting actually more focus as opposed to a long list of projects and loading them all in 1 year. We're looking at what are the priorities now and then including it in the out years as you've shown on this screen. So I just want to let the community who's concerned about pathways and continuing to maintain them and to expand them to know that we're not reducing our care and concern and emphasis on pathways. That while there are a number of places I wish we already had something or that I wish we didn't have routes anymore, having just ridden over them and during pedal. I just want to point that out, that it's not because we have to spend so much money on beach renourishment that we're cutting back on pathways. It's just focusing on them and continuing them in the out years, as I understand.
It's absolutely correct. And so, yes, this does represent a reduction this year, but if we look at 27, what these priorities are here, just with these three projects, we have about a $4 million project with Jonesville Road. We have a $2 million project with Dunnigan's Alley. This is about a 1.4 million. I think that might include some design money, but that's about 1.4. So just in those couple of projects, we're talking about $7 million of potential projects for next year. So that we are focused on design while we're doing a lot of other things around the community on other topics, but not losing focus on the topic with pathways. We're gonna get ready to build some things here in 27, 28.
And I think I'm going to look across the way at my colleague, Mr. Alfred. I know in the past, the Bike Walk Board has had input at the Planning Commission level, and I think continues to have input there because those who are out there biking on the paths understand where the needs are, and I'm hoping that this is reflective of those priorities as well.
Yep, just to sort of follow up on Councilman Bryson's point, I know Ms. Aloniga mentioned as we develop this dashboard, we will have definitions around discretionary and maintenance. I would ask that we spend some time also defining priority because we don't want people to read into this, not just for the pathway program, but any capital improvement program that we as a council will be at some point fighting over what we're going to do. That is not the intent here. I think the intent here is to get more organized and focused, to use her words. So just the definitions as we lead into the dashboard, I think are really important after listening to her comments.
So next up is the roadway program. This is a $5.1 million program. This, of course, just like the other ones we've talked about, it's going to be a little bit of a repeat. These are improvements, but instead to beach parks or pathways, this is improvements to our roadways. So similar thing to the pathways, where we're improving roads, whether that's repair, striping, painting, pedestrian crosswalks, safety improvements. But it also includes our dirt road paving program, where we work with private property owners and accept donations of those private unpaved roads, make them public, put them into public right away, which allows us to then make public investment into them. So we can pave them, we can install stormwater improvements, and then we can also take over the maintenance in perpetuity. You also start to see some items starting to pop in for the major thoroughfares and corridors plan. I recognize that's still in draft form at this point, but there are some priorities. One, there's some priorities that are coming up now, and we'll talk about a couple of those where we need to jump in front of that a little bit. But also starting to think about that in those out years, those years 28, 29, and 30. So it's on our radar, and we can think about those projects from a funding standpoint as we get to those years. The other thing that's in this is the adaptive traffic signal. That is, of course, all of our signalized intersections and the mast arms that are associated with them. So a few different pages. It is a fairly robust program. But a lot of the first items that are listed here are recurring items that are our roadway maintenance, which are what I just said, the town road resurfacing. We don't our town roads are actually in, the pavement condition rates are in pretty good shape, so we can hit a pause on road resurfacing this year and start to pick that up again next year. Our signal maintenance program includes the adaptive signals. So you understand what we're spending $1.1 million on is our signal heads for both the vehicles and for the pedestrians. They're coming of age, and we need to start replacing those. Same thing with our traffic cabinets, so that's funding here. And the other thing, a big thing we want to finish is battery backups at all of our signal locations. We have a few installed now. This will allow us to finish those out. So when we have those interruptions in power, those shorter duration ones, we can at least keep the system operational. You'll see the dirt road paving program highlighted, where our current focus is. Mitchellville Road, I have a slide on that, so I'll hit pause on that, but that is our priority focus for construction. The next 4 roads that are listed are in various stages of design, easement, right-of-way acquisition. So those will continue forward for construction then in 27. And then you can see where our mind is as far as for future years with other roadways that residents have approached us on. Island-wide striping, which is both pedestrian and vehicular safety. This is actually getting started now. We've already done some work. You may have seen on Gumtree, the Gumtree Road exit off the Cross Island. We put some effort in there to do everything but get in the car and put people in the right lane. We've given them as much striping and notice as we possibly can. It's working. I drive it every day. It's much better, but there's still a few where it's like I get in the car and turn the wheel for them. But that is going to continue. So we'll have a carry forward into 26. Our focus will be around Squire Pope, Gumtree, and I get this wrong every time, Matthews. That's where our focus will be for this current program that we're working on. As part of those Jonesville Road neighborhood meetings, we heard about improvements to that intersection at Spanish Wells. Their primary focus was on right lanes, so that's why it's documented here, but we're gonna analyze the whole intersection. We're gonna understand, is it just right turns, is it left turns? And start thinking through that from a design standpoint. The North Point access.
I think we should just slow down and make sure we're explaining that. I think there's 3 turn movements that we will assess. One is an automatic that we believe is a right turn lane off of Jonesville onto Spanish Wells that's needed. A left turn lane off Spanish Wells onto Jonesville is needed, and a right turn deceleration lane off of Spanish Wells onto Jonesville. And so those 3 turn movements there, nothing's going to help that unless and until we can help that intersection up at Spanish Wells and William Hilton Parkway turn left at a higher volume than it currently allows. The current alignment is, it maybe stack 5 cars in the turn lane, maybe a little more. Everyone's turning left there, we know that. But our goal is to really push on with Beaufort County that corridor enhancement to look at that left turn through there. That's more than a Jonesville Road improvement, but we have to look at that. We have to think big as we're looking through that, and we will. All of which the roads are not ours. So, okay.
And Mayor, if I could just make a side note on this, we've talked about this before, and that is in the LMO rewrite or amendments, looking at the traffic impact from development as occurred on Jonesville Road, that it doesn't need to be just the one location right there at the driveway, because they're downstream, if you will, impacts, and that we need to look at careful language, because it's great for us to be able to fund these improvements, which are absolutely necessary, but we also need some cooperation along the way, and we can do that through our LMO amendments.
We will have that on the Community Service Public Safety Committee agenda, I believe, on Monday, as a consideration for full town council approval at a certain point as an ordinance amendment to the land management ordinance. So.
North Point access. So North Point, as we're talking about North Point and the access to that property through the post office site to provide access over to Gumtree, set aside some funds to better understand and make that access a reality. Another project is similar to that Palmetto Pathway Parkway that I referenced previously, is looking at Tabby Walk and their entrance on Beach City Road and relocating that actually onto Palmetto Parkway. It's in a bad spot. It's been a bit of a safety issue, and there's a lot of pedestrians that come in and out of there too. So looking at relocating that as part of some additional work on the Palmetto Parkway. There's a placeholder here for the bridge project, just in case we need some additional funds to study or look at anything. And then really the balance of this is where we start to see the streetscape enhancements, as well as the William Hilton Parkway segment start to be populated into some of those future years for just thinking about the major thoroughfares and corridors plan. We are looking at advancing some work on Pope Avenue, and that's going to look specifically at the Pope Avenue Lagoon intersection and understanding how we can make some vehicular and safety improvements there, or pedestrian safety improvements there. Potentially putting in a scramble signal. If a scramble signal is basically all four sides of the intersection turn red, allow pedestrians to go. It's safer for pedestrians, and it also creates some efficiencies from a traffic standpoint. So we want to take a look at that and implement that this year.
So just in that area, I know I say it all the time, and I know it's part of the thoroughfare plans, but the segment on 278 William Hilton Parkway between Matthews and Shelter Cove. It's the only area on the island that has no landscaping, no streetscape. And unless I've missed it in here somewhere, I still don't see it.
It's good foreshadowing. It's coming up.
Is it? I'm glad to hear that. Thank you.
Sorry, I'll go faster.
I think she said hurry up.
She definitely did.
I was not reading ahead.
Thank you.
There you go. Thank you.
So as part of that, the William Hilton Parkway segments are starting to get mapped out here. And again, these are out in future years, 28, 29, 30. Again, we need to identify funding streams because these are pretty significant road projects that we're talking about. But specifically, to segment 5, and I have a slide on this, but segment 5 and starting to understand medians and what does that look like, and I'll talk a little bit more detail here in a second. That is something that we are requesting to put some money towards, so we can think about that. The same thing is also true on segment 8. Segment 8 includes the Sea Pine Circle. So we're showing $350,000. I have a slide on that to start to think through some of those improvements that we can make to improve efficiency of the circle. And starting to implement some of those items. Just to kind of close this out, there's one other project I just want to highlight because this is also coming out of a community meeting, and that's regarding Folly Field Road pedestrian safety improvements. We met with the neighborhood last summer, maybe last fall. We heard a lot from them about improvements we can make. We just completed, I saw the traffic devices were out there counting cars and for us a few weeks ago. So that work is continuing. This is now take that and putting that into some type of outcome, and the report will help direct us to what we can and can't do. It's of course a state roadway, so we have to work with the DOT on this as well.
Right, and those counts, obviously, as that timeshare comes into play, or when we get into the rental season down there, go up substantially from what you would have collected just recently. So as you look at that, I think we need to also consider whether or not those higher numbers are really being considered, because as Patsy said, and I know we're working on that traffic impact, it depends on when you take it and whether or not you've accounted for all of those other roads. And I would also like to see some directional signs coming off that timeshare onto Folly Field that allows people to know that they can go left or right. They do not have to go right onto Folly Field and up to 278 in that direction. It is going to be way too much of a burden for that community to handle. And thank you all for who came out to that community meeting. It was a great meeting and we really appreciate it.
But to highlight a couple of projects, here. First is Mitchellville Road. This is to pave, add storm drainage along Mitchellville Road from the Fish Hall intersection, going kind of northwest, for about 1,300 feet. Design on this has been complete for some time. We are waiting on a permit to be issued from the state. As soon as we issue that permit, we are ready to go to bid. At this point, though, it's May, middle of May. Even if we receive the permit tomorrow, to get that under construction, we're probably looking at July. So this could be a fiscal year 26 project at this point. But the money's there this year. We're going to roll the money forward for next year. William Hilton.
And everybody understands why, correct, right? We waited for the land disturbance permit, it's not here yet. We're waiting for it. As soon as we get it, then we can bid out the project. We can't bid these projects out without all our permits in hand, so.
William Hilton Parkway, segment 5. So this is that area of William Hilton Parkway from Matthews and Folly going over to Shelter Cove. The thoroughfare plan incorporates a lot of different ideas about this, but the central to the corridor plan is the how do we put medians into this segment? Because the point earlier, this is the one segment of William Hilton Parkway that doesn't have any medians. So we want to jumpstart this because there's a lot of work, there's a lot of coordination that's going to have to happen. We want to survey, we want to start some preliminary design, and most importantly, we want to have some public input. There are private property owners along that roadway that potentially could be impacted by this. We want to make sure that their involvement is part of this, and then put us on the right track for a successful project as we start to think about design, permitting, and construction in those future years. Segment 8 is regarding Sea Pine Circle. So some of these exhibits are coming out of the thoroughfare and corridor plan. This is really to look at the design, permitting, and construction improvements to the Sea Pine Circle. That could be striping, that could be signage, it might be construction related things, but we have to balance the efficiency of that circle with the iconic nature of that circle. We've heard that loud and clear from the public. So there's a coordination that we have to do, not only just from a design standpoint internally, but with the CSA. This is, of course, a DOT road, so we have to coordinate with the DOT, and of course, public input's very important. So we are focused on this next year. If there's things we can implement, great. Otherwise, if the items are more robust, we'll look at construction in FY27.
Before you move on to Park, thank you, if I could, Mayor. A couple things. One is I'm going to repeat the comment I made about pathway program, roadway program. It does show a reduction of 50% over last year's budget, but again, that's not because we changed our focus. It's because we're moving it from all in one year to phasing it in as we can do the work. And the second thing, and so I'm not going to repeat that with the other upcoming ones. But the other thing is the improvements, the roadway improvements are tied to pathways because of the crossings there. And I'm so glad to see so many safety improvements in the plans because we really need those for those crossings. So when we think of the roadway program, it's not just pavement for cars to drive down. It's for safe access for pedestrians and bicycles, especially at crossings. And the last thing I'll say is that I've received a lot of compliments from the community about the improvements that we have made in that section from, I think it's Beach City to Dillon Road, if I have the right streets, the North Ridge, Sea Turtle Marketplace area for the new plantings. And I saw today as I drove over, somebody there moving traffic cones around. So it looks as though there's some more work that's getting ready to be done in the pedestrian crossways there. But I did want to pass along to the total council and the staff that we've been receiving compliments for those improvements there. And I look forward to more of those in the future.
So just a real quick point on William Hilton 3, the work that you start to see happening is the final pieces of work that need to be completed. So there's some adjustments to some crosswalks that go through the median. We're also adding a couple of other pieces to that puzzle. So that's the work that's getting set up now. They're getting traffic set up. It'll be mostly night work that'll be taking place there. But then the work is scheduled to be done towards the middle or later part of June. I don't have the exact date, but late June is when the William Hilton 3 will be done completely and will be out of the way.
Yes.
Question for Mr. Orlando. Years ago, there was a road usage fee that was established to help supplement some of this road work that we're discussing today. It has been paused for legal reasons. Do you feel confident to be able to continue to present such a robust roadway portion of the capital improvement budget without that set-aside allocation?
Yes and no, I would say, because that portion of the road usage fee did not generate an astronomical amount of dollars. Our road needs, right, I'd say some of them are wants, lots of them are needs, are beyond our current financial capacity. We had a significant portion of roadway infrastructure enhancements in the Beaufort County referendum on the ballot. That's where we were relying on that large amount of fund from. That road usage fee, I think, is very important because it can help us pave our dirt roads, fix our intersections, but it won't rebuild Sea Pine Circle. That's pending appeals. I know Curtis stays on track of that pretty well and gives us updates every once in a while about it. I think that once, and you're going to start seeing this lay itself out in the strategic plan as we bring it forward next month. I think first and foremost, we need to know what our vision is and our expectations on road improvements, right? And that's that corridors plan. The second step, and second or third step, is going to look for federal and state dollars to fix roads that other people own, that other organizations and entities own. And so I think that has to be a big part of our strategy. That road usage fee will pay for striping, not for new pavement.
Obviously, thank you, Mr. Orlando. Obviously, a loaded question for me.
Yeah.
I'm trying to open our eyes here as a council. I think in the past, unfortunately, we have sort of sacrificed public safety in this realm because of dollars attached. So as we have discussions in the future about alternative funding sources, I think this is a prime example as why we need to be a little bit more aggressive. Thank you, sir.
May I add one more extra thing? And it's going to come up, and I think that's going to be the benefit of our capital improvement program workshop coming up. Let's pick Main Street for a minute. We came to the drawing board with Main Street, and we had a lot of variables baked into Main Street, right? And I'll remind us what they were. On-street bike lanes, off-street sidewalks, a parallel network of bike path adjacent to William Hilton Parkway. All of that will cause us, the town, to acquire additional property on the edge of the street, most likely causing some tree removal, but also really the acquisition of property above and beyond the road. And so we were estimating the probable cost of that project, and this is, don't quote me, but I guess if I say it out loud, you can, but that backfired. I think plus or minus $12 million when we're looking at it. And I think we have to start becoming more realistic on the contextual design preference, right? The context sensitive design might not mean the solution is everything that we're aspiring to achieve. And we can start reducing our costs, because I know that right now we cannot afford a Sea Pine Circle, a Main Street, a Chaplin corridor, paving, dirt roads, and all this work without us really getting to the table and prioritizing those needs, but also prioritizing the financial strategy. So I think it's great. Somebody said we're getting organized. We are. I would say that thank you to these two sitting at the table and a few other people, Adriana's team as well. We're better organized to start having those conversations with you in the future, so that everything doesn't feel like a wish list anymore. So I think Councilman Brown, I think to a degree that's what I'm responding to with that good question. This has to force the strategy of how are we going to prioritize it, AKA how are we going to fund it as well.
The next program is the park program. This is a $10.6 million part of the CIP fund. Again, maintenance of general park improvements, just like the beach program, except now we're in the non-beach parks, so the crossings, the Jarvis Creeks of the island. thinking about all of those amenities that comprise that park, those capital amenities and the maintenance and repair, replacement, improvement of those things. We have a lot of work, and I'll walk through this probably a little bit more detail on a few slides here. But design and permitting of improvements, we have a number of projects where we are in design and permitting. It's the Mid-Island Tract, Crossings Park, and there's really 3 phases of Crossing Park, and we'll talk about those. We have some construction though scheduled for FY26 with Old Schoolhouse Park, with Coligny Circle Pocket Park, and then with the Patterson and Taylor Family Parks. This fund also does include the Island Rec Association, their capital projects, and you'll see that listed out. So all of their building, pools, maintenance are listed. So the program itself lays out like this. Again, the things we kind of have to do, those maintenance items at the top. The public art is funded out of this. We just had a recent installation over at Shelter Cove with Natalie and her team. It looks fantastic. But this comes out of here. You can see Island Rec and their maintenance, consistent with what they requested last year. I will note that in their out years, they do, the buildings are getting to that age, and Frank and his team have been very open with us, and they've provided us a 5-year budget as well. And so they have some improvements, some maintenance things that are going to come due here over the next several years that we need to be paying attention to. Focus on the 26 projects, and I actually have slides to talk about these bottom ones. You'll notice that Chaplain, we've been doing some work on Chaplain. We are hitting pause on Chaplain for right now in 26, so that we can focus in on some of this other work and getting that under construction or design complete. But then pick Chaplain back up in 27, finish the design and get it under construction and permitted in 28 and 29. Those projects at the bottom, the Coligny Circle and the Crossings phases, I'll talk about on a highlight slide. Same thing with Mid-Island, Patterson, and Taylor. I have highlight slides for those. You can see some of the other projects that we're starting to identify with Jarvis Creek and some improvements out there. Shelter Cove Phase 2, the Best Buddies program, the Chapel Linear Park, and then starting to think about Barker Field Phase 2, the Mitchell Road property improvements that we've acquired, and the Marshland project. So some highlights of projects for FY26. The first is the Coligny Circle Pocket Park. So this is kind of that northwest, if there's a quadrant around the circle, that northwest quadrant of the circle, the iconic circle. Really finishing out, the other 3 areas are pretty well developed with our beach park, with the beach house, our beach parking lot, commercial businesses. This area here, if as you recall, this is it's a retention basin. Unfortunately, it's just not the most attractive. It's really more mud than is anything. So we're going to invest in that space, make some stormwater improvements, make it a rain garden, and then really make this a public amenity for this corner and for the shopping plaza. Better connect the pedestrians to the center, connect to our public pathway, and then an amenity here in the middle for seating and other items. Design and permitting are in progress, and we expect construction to begin in December of this year. Crossings Park is split into 3 different phases. You can see the overall master plan here in the lower right. Phase 1 is the new pickleball complex that'll include 18 courts built to tournament regulations, a clubhouse and pro shop with restrooms, the lighting, parking lot, landscaping, and other connections that are part of that project. Design and permitting is underway. We have just, actually earlier this month, we submitted our, there is a wetland that we have to impact in order to construct this. We submitted our permit to the Army Corps, so that process has started, and we'll submit our state permit, our coastal zone consistency permit here in the next 30 to 45 days. And then the goal is to get construction started, get everything done so we're in place to start construction July 1 of 27. If not sooner, based on the comments that you heard from Mr. Orlando at the meeting. If we can get that permit done sooner and we're ready to go, we'll come to council and ask for a budget amendment.
Yeah, that's an important part. We're being very realistic. We could have, if this was last year, we would have moved that $8 million into FY '26 and we would have pushed. The staff would have realized by the time we finish all the civil, get the federal permit in place for the storm or for the wetland, the state permit for the land disturbance permit, get it back, bid it out, finish civil, bid it out, negotiate the contract, go to contract. It's 12 months. It's 12 months because of the permitting that we're waiting for. So we pushed that into FY '27, realizing, or we placed it in FY '27 and showed you on slides prior, as well as in your budget ordinance. I think that's really important. In your budget ordinance attached to it is a 5-year CIP program and a 1-year funding program. We've maintained that this is the priority in FY '27. So I want everyone to understand that from the pickleball standpoint, the project's prioritized, the funds in '27 will be there. It's subject to your approval, of course. We're not approving '27's budget this year. You're approving that we're working on it with the good confidence that we, by next July, should have a permit and a contract and ready to roll. So I think that's the realistic part that we should really pay attention to right now from a timing standpoint.
Mayor, I would tell you, I'm always glad to hear more progress on the pickleball courts. And folks keep asking me, do you play pickleball? How's your pickleball game going? And I'm going, well, I'm trying to find the time to do it. And now I'm going to say, I'm not going to play pickleball until we have the ribbon cutting at those new pickleball courts. So get on it. How's that?
Phase 2, which is tracking about a quarter behind Phase 1, is the improvements right across the street at the Bristol Sports Complex. And that's working with the arena, putting a new cover and fencing over it. Also includes completely rebuilding and putting in a new skate park and then adding a pump track. And so for those not familiar with what a pump track is, the skate park is generally for the skateboarders. The pump track is really for the kind of the BMX riders, those bike riders. And so 2 different amenities, 1 new, designs in progress, again, tracking about a quarter behind, working through that same methodology as we are with the pickleball court to get to construction later in '27. And then Phase 3 is the final phase, which is the baseball complex, and really the largest phase of work that we have to do. That's the 2 new baseball fields. So we have the meadow that's over off of Helmsman Way. We have the meadow here, be converted into two baseball fields, a new Champions Plaza, reworking the existing fields, new concessions, training facility, et cetera, all part of that Phase 3 project. We are going to continue, we're going to advance the design in '26 and then start to set that up for final design, permitting, construction. That is a large phase of a project. That'll probably be just from a construction sequence standpoint, have to take some thought and some time. We can't take 3 baseball fields offline. We will most likely have to build 2 baseball fields in order to take this one offline for a season. So it's a little bit longer schedule in order to accommodate that.
That makes sense?
Mid-Island Park Phase 1. So this is, of course, the Mid-Island track that former golf course that the town acquired several years ago. Really looking at Phase 1 to be the ecological and resilience improvements, so stormwater connectivity, stormwater improvements. And the really exciting thing here is not just that and really opening this up and protecting the nature and ecology of the site. But right now, this is all hard infrastructure, piped infrastructure, opening that stream up, creating really kind of a braided stream, so a series of streams that work back and forth, that we can create wetlands, we can create habitats, and really provide a stormwater tool infrastructure to help support this area in those times when we need it. And so this area can take on a lot of stormwater and move it across out to the creek. So design and permitting. So also as part of this, we will have construction of a parking lot, which will help support conversations we're having regarding the St. James Baptist Church. It's hard to see on here. There's also a restroom. I think it's right here. There's a restroom building right here that will get refurbished as part of this project, along with all the trails and pathways through the space. That's phase one. Design and permitting is in progress, or design's in progress, permitting in 26 and then construction in 27.
Mr. Brown?
Yeah, so I know there's been a lot of questions about the Mid-Island Park. I don't know, number one, Mr. Mayor, when we gonna rename it? But some of the discussion around us, bringing it back to become more of a stormwater tool, I agree with that wholeheartedly. And staff is gonna have to answer this question today. I'm simply provoking thought here. We have had significant investments in the south end of the island and more northern end of the island, Main Street and so on, when it comes to our pump stations to deal with stormwater. We've already adopted the Mid-Island master plan, and I just want to make sure that we're taking a very, very keen look at that area, because there are several major PUDs, there are several other neighborhoods that all are relying on significant outfall back into Broad Creek. And then throw on top of that is tidal. So I want to make sure that as we're looking forward with future investments, that we have analyzed that to the point where we, as a council, are being asked the question, do you need it? And if so, what's it going to cost us?
And if I could add to that, kind of piggybacking on stormwater improvements, I spoke about that yesterday, but this certainly ties back into our draft strategic plan, which looks for stormwater improvements, and this is a significant one for that area. I'm glad to see that. I'm glad to see returning it to a more natural environment, and the key words up there, ecological and resilience improvements to stormwater lagoon systems. Folks often ask, well, what's all that money for, and what are you doing there with the Mid-Island Park? How do you like those quotations I'm putting up there, Mr. Brown? But I keep saying, we're redoing that area after the improvements, after all the grading was done for the golf course, to return it more to a natural environment, even an improved environment, to help out with stormwater management in that area. So I think it's important to highlight that. Thank you.
The last couple of projects here are the Patterson Family Park and Taylor Family Park. These are, of course, new parks in areas that are underserved by parks. So Patterson along Marshland Road, putting a whole program of pavilions, recreational space. This is fortunate that we have an overlook over the marshes of Broad Creek, so having a little overlook incorporated as part of that. Walking trails, you can see the whole program that's laid out on there now. We've actually, and this is one of two projects, the next one is Taylor Family Park, where we are doing design build. So that means we bring the architect and the contractor together. We've already executed those contracts, so we are in design and able to then shift very quickly into construction. That design and permit is in progress, and we'll get under construction on Patterson Family Park around December of this year. The other one is Taylor Family Park. Again, a very, very similar program, except for it does not have the benefit of marsh views, but a similar program on this park. Same design build contract. Design and permitting is also in progress and tracking about 30 to 60 days behind the Patterson Family Park project. The last one, actually, I forgot I had a slide on Old Schoolhouse. So Old Schoolhouse includes all those same improvements that you heard us talk about last year in the FY25 budget, with landscape site improvements, ADA improvements, lighting, shade, seating. The one difference you'll see here, we have added money in 26 to actually resurface those lots. We're going to pull them out and redo them. A couple of years ago, we made repairs. Anytime you make repairs to that type of surface, especially in the freeze stalls we've had, especially this past winter, things start to open up, surfaces start to delaminate. I experienced this a lot in my time in Ohio working on these types of courts, and it's time now. We just need to pull this out and rebuild it. So that we added that to the budget this year.
sorry, Mayor, one more question. I keep asking about the turning radius coming off of 278. Hopefully that's included here. To me, it's a simple fix. I got a sledgehammer. I can go out there and help you.
What we're talking about is a deceleration lane off William Hilton Parkway, and so we will work to our best ability with the South Carolina DOT to approve that.
Yeah, I'm not talking about a deceleration lane. That'd be great. But just the turning radius itself, instead of a right-hand turn off
Okay.
of 278.
A curve.
A curve in there.
That is part of this. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Yeah. Sean said that at first. To me.
All right. Next fund is the Facility and Equipment Program, 4.7 million. As the name implies, it is for the maintenance of our town-owned buildings. So whether it's town hall, all of our fire stations, the fire department, or the fire headquarters. We have some lease space that we have certain responsibilities for, but basically all the administrative and fire staff work every day. Those are those facilities. Also includes our equipment, includes our software. So those IT, those public safety systems, our public safety cameras that we utilize throughout the island to keep an eye on different things and make sure everybody's is safe when they're in our public spaces. And it also includes some of our partners and Coastal Discovery Museum and their budget, as well as then a partnership with the Historic Mitchellville Freedom Park and work with them on a parking lot. And I have a slide that'll talk about that. So this one's a little bit more, I guess, unique compared to some of the others in that most everything that's in here is maintenance. There are some discretionary line items, but everything that's in here is stuff that we do every year, whether it's facility maintenance, whether it's town hall facility improvements, whether it's IT, fire department, equipment, et cetera. That's all listed here. Those are things that we have. This also does include a couple discretionary items. Here's one discretionary item is the tree planting program. I want to call that out because that was something that in past budgets was called forestry management. We took the forestry aspect, which is more of an operational, so trimming trees, we put that into the operations budget with facilities. And this is purely money for tree planting. So $150,000 to plant trees on the island is what this is for. You see the Rex and his team in the Coastal Discovery Museum improvements. Again, pretty status quo this year and for the most part in their future years. A big line item that you'll see in their budget is for the pavilion restroom building. That building's really showing its age and needs some improvement, and so they're going to invest in that facility. Some of the other projects, you'll see we're placing a marker out there for the fire rescue headquarters. That's been talked about recently. But just putting that on our radar is something that is important and we need to think about in some of these future years. The Jonesville Horse Barn, as we think about putting that property that we acquired to preserve green space and open space out there on Jonesville Road. As we get that RFQ out, there's some improvements we need to make to the building to make it usable. Some fence repairs, some miscellaneous site improvements. And then you'll see the town refuse and recycling management improvements. That is looking at all of our beach parks, all of our town facilities and starting to put the right equipment in place so that we can manage, so we can, one, separate waste and recycling stream, and better manage those resources. Some of that's looking at solar trash compactors that'll help us with efficiencies on number of times we have to go and dump containers. But starting to think through that over really this year and a little bit into 27. As far as the highlight itself, the Mitchellville Freedom Park is the project to highlight. So as part of our agreement, our agreement with the Freedom Park, working with them to design improvements to the access through the site, providing some parking. Right now we're working through the design. It's a little bit of a challenging site because there's a lot of archaeology that we have to be careful not to disturb or make sure it's understood before we disturb. So that's, the design is in progress and we'll get permitting underway and construction in 27.
May I go back to the last page of the capital improvement priority plan and Wild Wing Cafe renovation? which is discretionary. I know that there are conversations that we need to have with regard to Wild Wings, but I find it interesting and why I raised the question with regard to renovation.
So you'll notice there's no funding
There's
associated
no
with it.
funding. I did notice that,
So,
yes. That's why
we-
there's a conversation I know that has to be had. The word just kind of, I guess it's a placeholder.
It is a placeholder for exactly, frankly, your question you're asking. As we worked through this, you'll see that Enchilada's property improvements, well, it shows maintenance. You know, building is gone, we're improving some open space there. I think there's some opportunity to enhance and add some parking in the backside. We're at a standstill with Wild Wing Cafe. I have heard from various town council members different goals for the Wild Wing building property. And so I do think that before too long, and perhaps the right time to talk about it, realizing that there are no dollars in here, let's talk about it at the CIP workshop that's coming up in a month. But between now and then, please talk with each other and with me about it. I think that there's some great scenarios out there. We acquired it for parking. I was a part of conversations where we talked about staff or town operations in that building. And then I think most recently we heard from Sea Turtle Patrol and HHI, really, from Amber and team, that would be a great use for their facility. It was a $4 million acquisition. There's considerable dollars to upfit it. We are very open-minded and very willing. I just think that we have to get to the bottom of what those 3 or 4 options might be and move forward confidently. I will say this, for right now, the space has Sea Turtle Patrol storage in the parking lot. Because we displaced them. They were displaced from the Islanders Beach parking lot. They are not in the building. They have some storage at Celebrations Park, so that's starting to work. They gave their Sea Turtle talks in that location. It's fabulous. And Amber, I texted her several days ago. She's been great, especially when we had the whale wash up on our beach shores over a weekend. We just need to know how to confidently move forward. This summer, it is open for free, as of right now, free parking at that site. Signs up yet?
Signs are up.
Signs are up. It's open, it's free to park, just like Enchiladas. No money in here, but at some point, I will ask respectfully to give me collective direction.
Thank you for that. It is a conversation that we need to have. And then the other thing that I don't see on here listed at all is the PNC building. Unless I'm just not seeing it, which is
Yes.
possible.
So we dropped the PNC off, and we're just referring to it by its address, so
Oh.
it's 4 Office Way.
Okay.
4th line down, I didn't mean to skip over that, but 4 Office Way is on here as a project for 26.
Okay, so that's why I didn't pick up on it. Thank you.
Mayor, I echo the question about the Wild Wings property and the discussion, and Mr. Orlando's suggestion to put that on the discussion with CIP projects. I think it's excellent, and I'm looking forward to that conversation. I'm glad that we're going to have it. Thank you.
We're in the home stretch here on the different funds. So stormwater program is really the last major fund. $6.4 million. This, of course, goes to improvements in sustaining our stormwater infrastructure throughout the town, enhancing our resiliency. We do that by maintaining outfalls and pump stations around the island that we're responsible for. We also make drainage improvements to infrastructure that we own, but we also then have a number of agreements, drainage agreements with the various property owners associations around the island. And so we work in tandem with our private partners and through easements, invest some of our public dollars back into the neighborhoods. And because stormwater, as Jeff always points out, stormwater doesn't know boundaries. And so it's important that we focus in on stormwater infrastructure. The program itself, this was discussed yesterday as part of the stormwater fund, but the first 2 items here are related to those private agreements that we have. And it's split out like this. The stormwater maintenance and improvement program, that's $1.8 million. That is for property owners associations that have projects that they would like the town to.
That's the second line
For reimbursement.
item, the 2 million.
Yeah. So those projects are submitted, that the town takes on as part of our program is the $1.8 million. And then we have another $2 million set aside for reimbursement. So those where we just don't have capacity, we don't have the resources to take, there's a limit to what we can take on. Property owners associations can go on and take those projects on their own, work with Jeff and his team, and make sure that they're checking all the boxes along the way. We're making their necessary inspections, and then they can apply for reimbursement. Right now, they have to compete for limited funds. And so sometimes those reimbursements can't happen that fiscal year. They have to happen either next fiscal year or potentially in future fiscal years. We are trying to provide resources so that POAs don't have to wait or borrow money, so they get reimbursed more quickly. That's the word.
And we'll have more in-depth conversations on this at our stormwater workshop in
August.
August.
Then you'll see a whole host of projects that are listed out here, and I have a slide that speaks to a number of these, particularly the Moonshell Folly Field. I know that was a question that was asked in yesterday's workshop, so we'll hit pause and we'll talk about that for a second. I keep going the wrong way. Bear with me. Let me do it. Might be easier. You'll see the Bryant Road restoration, again, kind of building on the town's investment in that property and getting it ready for investment, private investment. We're looking at that pond and how we make it function the way it's supposed to. A whole host of items, and again, I have a number of these highlighted on a slide that we can talk to in more detail. There's a lot of projects on here. And so these are the 26 projects. As we start to get deeper into the slides, Jeff and his team are thinking about future priorities, things that they need to think about on other areas. A really in-depth look at what's happening in the next 5 years as it relates to stormwater, North Forest Beach, Muddy Creek. This is where we are carrying, this is one of those I mentioned, we're carrying a little bit higher contingency. This is one where stormwater, Jeff and his team do a great job of assessing and evaluating, but a lot of times the best way we figure out when there's a problem or where there's a problem area is when we get rain and we have to address something. This gives us a little bit more flexibility to address those items. So I mentioned the stormwater maintenance agreements. We moved that into the CIP for FY26. It represents a sizable increase over what we had previously established last year, and that was when you saw that slide earlier in the presentation, that $4.2 million increase was to put our money into those agreements. Central Island Pump Station, this is also known as the Wexford Pump Station. We want to call it, we're changing the nomenclature for this in part because it's not just for Wexford, it serves a much larger drainage area. So this better reflects that pump station is for a larger area. It's the last of the 4 pump stations that we've to make investment in, if I have that right, Jeff?
Yes.
So we're going to start to look at a comprehensive overhaul of that pump station. We're already doing that, continuing that this year. And looking at design, and you see the whole list of things that need to happen. This will show up in our FY27 and probably even our 28 budget as a major capital investment. This is in a magnitude of a $7 million improvement to that pump station that we're starting to plan for. Design's in progress and then permitting in 26, and we'll get going on construction. Construction sequence, and as you might expect on something like this, is challenging because we need to make sure the system's operational when we need it.
If I could just interject for just a second on that. I mean, this is such a big and complicated project to do that overhaul. We've been thinking about it for several years. We're considering this is a really good candidate for design build because there's so many different components to the design. So that's what we'll be looking at as an alternative delivery method for that project.
Questions so far, any of this?
Keep on.
Gumtree Road drainage improvements, so spending $120,000 along Gumtree, really on drainage improvements between Katie Miller and Georgiana Drive, with ditches, new inlets, new outlets, maybe some new pipe in some areas. If you drove through that area over the last couple of days, you saw, particularly that area I just referenced, that the ditches were pretty full through that area because they weren't moving water the way they're supposed to. So design and permitting is in progress. We'll get that moving in the next budget year. Making some improvements to our Jarvis Creek outfall, again, design in 26, permitting in 27, and then construction in 28. Keeping with the Jarvis Creek theme, starting to replace pumps in the pump station there. This is one of 4 pumps.
One of 4 pumps, and all of the pumps are more than 20 years old, so.
So starting to replace those one by one over the next 4 years. We may do a couple next year, but just to kind of just best practice sequence some of those pumps as they go in, so that we have some, as we start to hit some of those life cycle years, we have time to plan for it. The Moonshell Road and Follyfield neighborhood drainage improvements, this was something I was asked about yesterday. The design is in progress. We have spent 512 days waiting for.
It took 510 days to get the wetland permit from the Corps.
So that's been a big source of delay on that project, but now we have an answer from the Corps. We can advance the design, we can advance the project, and that's what we'll be doing.
We did get the right answer, though.
Yeah.
So that was good.
Thank you. That was where a lot of the questions from the community was coming from. It just seemed to have stopped, so I will relay that back.
Yeah, please. And that highlights a concern with some of these projects when we have to touch the federal government. And what's happening at the federal level is, it's already 10 days just to get a jurisdictional determination. How long is it gonna take us to get a wetland permit for a pickleball court? Those are some things we have to pay attention to and probably tap on some of our legislative delegation on the shoulder and see how they can help. The Palmetto Hall outfall, adding some hydraulic capacity to that outfall. Design in 26, permitting in 27, and then construction moving ahead a year out. This is another a big project, not as major as the Central Island, but something that Jeff and his team will need to coordinate to make sure that infrastructure is available when we need it. Stormwater.
May I just ask a quick question? So, I love the idea that Jeff said that waterfall doesn't know boundaries. And as we're looking through these and the areas that are listed and realizing that we have county roads and state roads, et cetera, that usually causes a little bit of difficulty with addressing issues. Are all of these roads and all of these projects within areas that the town owns? Or any of these crossover to other areas, roads?
Some of the projects, most of the projects are within our easements or town-owned property, but other ones are taking place on state-owned and county-owned infrastructure. And in some instances, we need easements. All of these do provide a general public good, but the water doesn't know the boundaries, and because the jurisdictional changes from from a county road to a state road to a town road, it's impacting our community. We're taking these on as capital projects. We'll get the necessary encroachment permits as we need it. I mean, a good example is when we have an out year, a very soon out year, is improvements at Helmsman's Way, which is a state-owned state road, but we vastly need an upgrade there, and we can't afford sometimes to wait.
One of the ones that I noted that was listed on here is Burke's Beach area. And I was just, that's what kind of started the question roaming around in my mind. So I'm happy to see that we are taking that initiative with roads that the town doesn't necessarily own, although I've heard news in the background about that particular road, which is, I think, good for the town. But we have areas that we've talked about, that I've identified, people have told me that I need to be thinking about how we get them serviced that aren't owned by the town And usually I push with that we need to own the roads. But if, short of owning the roads, if there's some way we can address their issues with stormwater and flooding, I'd be really grateful, and I know they would be incredibly grateful if they can get that problem solved. So I know that's not a conversation for now right here, but I would like to have that soon. Thank you.
Workshop. The last two funds that we have, I'll just take these in tandem because they're very short and brief, are the fleet program, which is, you might suspect, is for new and replacement vehicles. This was a much larger fund last year as a result of the fire engine replacements that we were working through. Really, this year it's $180,000 budget, of which the $80,000 is to replace a fire department SUV and then all the bells and whistles and equipment that has to go into that SUV to help support their operation, and then holding a $100,000 contingency in that item. And the final fund is the Land Acquisition Administration Program. This supports town acquisition of properties, so surveys, appraisals, legal fees. We do not budget money in here for acquisition. That only happens as a budget amendment after town council directs us to go and acquire property. So this only reflects the $250,000 for those purposes to support the acquisition. And with that, that's all I have.
Okay, any questions, comments?
It's an excellent job. I look forward to the workshop for the CIP. I mean, there's a lot to talk about there. Today wasn't today, so that'll happen next month.
Mr. Brown?
I've got some, surprisingly enough, I got some comments written down here that I wrote along the way. One, I want to publicly thank Mr. Orlando and his team, not just for this year, but we have really found a way to get creative in the way that we reinvest into our community through the capital improvements program. If you look closely, to the tune of 45% of our budget this year is us reinvesting into our community, and for various reasons, obviously. I also like the fact that we are transitioning into this 5-year look. It sort of eliminates the shock experience of our constituents when they see our budget fluctuate from year to year with a very high increase. But again, because of the investment back into our community. I'm also pleased that we are very diverse in where we invest. I think the map that Mr. Laniger showed early on depicts that. I'm glad that we as a council are going to be having discussions around reconsidering our fund balances across the board and looking at alternative funding sources, because in order to keep up this good work, we have to do that. And also want to sort of mention in passing that councils before us were aggressive in borrowing so that we could do a lot of what we're doing now. It gave us the opportunity to increase fund balances along the way and keep ourselves healthy. I'm glad that we're going to be having those discussions out loud. And lastly, and this is maybe a suggestion to you, Mr. Town Manager, as we develop this incredible dashboard, none of what we're doing does not tie back to our comprehensive plan, our strategic plan, and when we talk about parks, our Parks and Rec master plan, okay? I think we lead with that. We have spent a lot of time on some of these projects many years ago, sort of developing them conceptually to get to a point now where we're funding and making them come to a reality. And we have to continue that process. So for the public's sake and for us as we start to work together as a new council, I think it's important that we remember that we're not pulling this stuff out of thin air, okay? It is because of the good work that we have done in the past to get us to this point. So again, thank you to Mr. Orlando and his team for a great presentation and getting us organized. And I look forward with my colleagues here for future discussions so we can keep the ball rolling. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Other comments? Ms. Hunter?
Yes, again, thank you to the town manager and the team in laying all of this out and being very transparent and taking time to walk through it. I appreciate the process improvement of having dollars associated with the CIP that are more realistic to what we're actually going to spend and where we are in the process. I think it makes a much clearer picture to our residents about what we're actually going to be able to accomplish and we're going to be able to spend in that year. So I think it is a move in the right direction. I also appreciate the change identifying what is considered maintenance, what's considered discretionary, and what's considered contingency. And the reason I think that's important is I think it's good for us to have an understanding, especially on the maintenance side, how much it costs us on an annual basis to complete that maintenance for the buildings, the land, the parks, et cetera, the roads, everything that we own, so that we can have that clear financial picture. And of course, I did some math. So I took a look at what you covered today. And if we include beach renourishment, $63 million of the entire budget is maintenance. 13.8 million is discretionary and 1.1 million is contingency. So I think it's good to have that kind of transparency and understanding what we need to spend and what we're choosing to invest in. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Becker?
Thank you. Just a moment to congratulate you again. I know I've said this on 3 separate occasions, at least once on each of them, that this is a very well done budget, and I support it. The transparency is great. The conversation is remarkable. I feel as though each of us have been involved to a high level with the decisions that were made and what's been built into this budget. And I think the community should be proud of it as well. We'll see the next year or so really start to develop some projects that they've been long waiting for. And the breakdown of why it has taken the length of time is very clear, I believe, to everyone at this point. And I hope that we move along smoothly with that. And I know that this is just the teamwork that you've put together that can do that in a very efficient and budget-wise way. And thank you for that.
Thank you. Ms. Bryson?
Thank you. I join my colleagues in thanking Mr. Orlando and his team, and a special shout out to Mr. Leininger today for having to endure all those slides with us. But I really appreciate the phasing. I think it's a lot more realistic, and I think it's very helpful. We all get frustrated, including, I know, our town staff, with the slowness of the progress on accomplishing these projects. But I think if we continue to all row together, we'll get there. But as I've mentioned yesterday, and I'll continue to mention, the ties in the capital improvements to the draft strategic plan, and looking at the summary here and just picking out the 3 areas that are highlighted in the reports that we've been given. One of the new strategies is enhanced major corridors and streets, and we certainly heard that today. $6.7 million in the CIP to do that. Another strategy, draft strategy, is assess and reinforce island resilience. And again, beach renourishment, budgeted amount $47.5 million in the CIP. And then the third area that's emphasized in the CIP is infrastructure with emphasis on stormwater, $6.3 million in the CIP. And that indeed was 189% increase over last year due to moving funds from the stormwater fund to the CIP fund, but again, increasing the amounts because it's such a critical, as we know from the rain we've received recently, it's such a critical need on the island to manage our stormwater. So thank you very much.
So there's not a whole lot more that I can add to that unless y'all have something. Go ahead, Steve.
Yes, very briefly. This is an impressive demonstration of the use of funds to invest in our community. If you look over time, communities which do not invest and reinvest decline. They don't stay the same, they decline. So by making these types of investments in our community, we are taking strong steps to make sure that we remain an outstanding community into the future.
Thank you. Stevie D? Okay. So, real quick, I agree with everything that's been mentioned here today and stated. My thoughts go to a budget that is purpose-driven, with a focus on quality of life, economic development, sustainability, reinvestment that keeps us current, keeps us moving forward in a way that we need to do. You have taken the budget over the past several years and done a 180. The transparency aspect, the information aspect that has been provided is something that we have not had as a community. And that you should be very, very much applauded for. Staff has done a tremendous job. Looking at it 5 years out is something that should have been done a long time ago. And the maintenance aspect, what does it take for us to operate on a maintenance side? What does it take to keep things running? So really, just a great job. I hope the public is as proud as we are for the staff and you, Mark, and all the work that y'all have put in. So with that, we'll open up for some comments.
A lot of memories for me back in the day, way back when. I served on a town council in a small Connecticut town, and we went through a similar process that you're doing now. But when it came time to vote, myself and others offered numerous amendments to the budget proposed by the administration. The purpose of those amendments reflected our desire to change priorities. I've heard lots of discussion, some good questions so far, and I'll be curious to see if any amendments are offered when the budget comes back to you for a second reading and adoption. And with all due respect to the finance department and the town manager, this document is not perfect, okay? So we'll see. I mentioned yesterday that I strongly believe that a private company could do a better job than the chamber. It can't happen with this budget, but the millions of dollars that we spend to entice people to come to Hilton Head, I believe could be better spent next year. And I just learned from one of your staff folks earlier today that in fact it has gone out to bid and 7 companies have responded for next year, so I'm very encouraged by that. I was impressed with a young man who spoke yesterday about providing the Gullah Geechee Historic Neighborhood Community Development Fund, that's a mouthful, with some town funds. He noted it's almost exclusively state funds that go to the effort. In fact, the budget for the new fiscal year for that fund is $2 million less than the current fiscal year. And as the speaker noted, not a dime of local money, town money, is allocated, not a dime. And he was right. When the town talks a lot about the Gullah Geechee connection with Hilton Head and its importance, well, back that up with some local money. And it's a lot more than putting all these posters up celebrating the Gullah Geechee community. I've got a suggestion as to where the money could come from. Transfer the $600,000 to Dredge Harbor Town to the Gullah Geechee Historic Neighborhood Community Development Fund. As I mentioned yesterday, Harbor Town is a private commercial yacht basin, and public funds should not be used for a private venture benefiting a few. And as you know, one of your strategic priorities developed at your February workshop included preserving and celebrating Gullah Geechee culture and neighborhoods. Well, time to act on that. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, Kim.
Frank Babel.
Everybody want to stretch?
3 minutes.
Well, as you know, I may be the last one. Anyway, congratulations to you all. I've been coming to these things for 10, 15 years, and thank you for giving us what you have to make our pathway system what it is, and for those who aren't here anymore, they're doing something else. So thank you. So what do we get for all this? Well, the town has built a connected pathway network. It's pretty good. We've created an industry now with more than 35 firms who are in the biking business. And we've achieved national recognition with our gold awards. We have map kiosks, and we have lots of information that's in the town, in the chamber, and Culture HHI, doing a great job. And what's important about this? That's important because it tells bikers, the people coming here, where to go and what to do. We have a unique product, a system that connects POAs, restaurants, hotels, parks, beaches, and so on. And staff is continuing to plan for the future, which is great to see things. And importantly, perhaps most importantly, the town staff is in the process of amending the LMO from a motor vehicle traffic perspective to a transportation system multimodal perspective. The same thinking is underway at SCDOT with the Momentum 2050 planning study. This is revolutionary for SCDOT to do this, and we're on the edge of that, and this is terrific. It's really complete streets with our expert Patsy over here. It's a complete streets program called transportation that people will actually understand. But at the end of the day, beside the issue of bike ped facilities on the US 278 corridor bridge, sorry for the things I keep on sending you, with a 70% reduction in Pathways funding to support the breach renourishment project, perhaps we can focus on two areas next year. The first is safety education, all the way to pathway etiquette, from getting helmets for kids to teaching cyclists how to ride our pathway system. We really don't do much of that. We hand out things like this, but we're not experts at it. We're looking at kids wearing helmets. You know, we're not in that business. But I think the town does a wonderful job of building things, but when we come to education, it's really important we do something about it, particularly now when we don't have a lot of money going into pathways. And the second is maintenance. We get high marks for our system, and when we ask people out there, how's it going? They say, you know, we love your pathways, but you know, those pathways are a little rough. You need to do something about it. But this year, you have $500,000 in that, and we really appreciate that. So keep it up.
Thank you, Frank.
Thank you. And good luck to you.
And lastly, Jean Zapfel.
Hi, Gene Zappo. I live at 28 Golden Hind in Hilton Head Plantation. I have attended the two budget sessions, all-day sessions, last month, I guess it was, yesterday and today. Outstanding work. I've done a lot of budget work, and I've seen this done before, and you guys have done an outstanding job. I wanted to speak a little bit about an example, and not of necessarily good budgeting, but of some of my confusion. So I wanted to talk a little bit about Square Pope Road. I ride my bicycle almost every day, and about half the week I ride up Square Pope Road from Hilton Head Plantation. I crossed that road, I think, 5 or 6 times, and that is the worst condition road that I've seen anywhere in Hilton Head. And so I said, okay, I'm gonna complain, I'm gonna ask you guys, I wanna understand how assessments are being made of the roads. And then I started thinking, it's probably a county-owned road, all right? It's probably not your road. So is that right? I know you can't answer the question, that's okay. So
It's a state road.
It's a state road. But what I'm confused about is we are doing design of medians on 278, which I think is great. We need to do that. And we're spending money on that design, but why are we not spending money on maintaining Square Pope Road, for instance? So that's a state road and you're doing work on it, and you're not doing this road on another state road. So I guess I'm trying to understand that. I would like to learn more about the condition assessment process. You must have a process, and I'd like to see the results of that. I'd like to learn how to get the answer to that. And then lastly, there's some confusing things. Like one of the gentlemen said that he doesn't think we should spend money on dredging out the marina, right, in Sea Pines. I get it. I don't understand why we're doing that. Somebody's explaining to me, why are we spending money on a private marina? I think I understand the reason we spend money on stormwater and subsidize stormwater work in PUDs, but I don't really know, nobody's explained that. So the confusion I have is where we cross lines. between, oh, that's not our responsibility, but we do it anyway, and, oh, no, that's not our responsibility, so we can't do it. So I'd just like some clarity on that, and I think adding that clarity to your descriptions of why you're doing which projects would add a lot. But in closing, outstanding job. I really enjoyed it and look forward to it again next year. Thanks.
Thank you for that. Thank you. Anybody else, Kim?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Mark?
Yes. And what I will say is, I think perhaps a few minutes, we can compare some notes outside of a public workshop. I can help you with some of those answers. So we just got to make sure we have your phone number, if you could provide it to the town clerk. Okay, thank you. I just want to quickly say thank you to all of you. I will say this, I think we're listening well and we're getting better. I'm super proud of Sean and Jeff and Sean Colin and Adriana and the entire team that put their heart and soul into this. We're very proud of the CIP program, where it's heading. I think, to steal some of what you all say, we're going in the right direction. We're focusing on those priorities that matter. And I want to make a point to say thank you to all of you, town council, because my one-on-one and two-on-two time with you, I took pieces of a lot of what you said, and you see it reflected up here, and it made us better. So this wasn't done in a bubble and by ourselves presented. Every single one of you sat at the table and helped us think through how to get better at this. So I just really want to make sure I say thank you.
Thank you. Moving on. Kim, do we have anybody signed up for non-agenda item? No, sir. Okay. That will take a motion to adjourn. Second. We are adjourned. Thank you all.
All right.
He's not wrong.